There's the old expression, the beatings will continue until morale improves. And this is basically the state of men today. You got different men advocating for all kinds of stuff, whether it's red pill, date approach, PUAs, I'm gonna go monk, mgtow. You're just not red pill. You're blue pill. You're black pill. You're not looks maxing. You're not in the gym enough. Your money game is not up. And a lot of these things are just pressure reliefs. I used to work back in the days fixing pumps and swimming pools and stuff. And you have these large filters, and they'd have a little pressure valve at the top. And when there was too much pressure building up, you open up the valve, let some of that pressure out. And that's basically all that this stuff is. It's just pressure valves for males in society. And things are so bad now that you have society, and overwhelmingly it's women, single mothers, where you see a lot of these groomers, right? A lot of these people that are telling you and it's overwhelmingly men. It's overwhelmingly men that are advocating that your kid be trans and dress up like a woman. And it's because the beatings will continue until morale improves. And so this sort of lifestyle becomes a pressure relief for some of these men. And I've always advocated the same thing. When logic and reason fail among men, the only thing left is force. And when you refuse to go that route, well, then the only thing left is slavery. And so this is what a lot of men advocate for. This is why you see the cut your penis off, and to some extent you see it with young women where you cut your boobs off. But overwhelmingly, this is stuff that is pushed to men, right? Like the Dylan Mulvaney's, right? People like that. Why? Why is this pushed to men? It's to stop men from creating a revolution, this is what you see going on like in France, right? This is what's going on in France, that the men are basically revolting against the government. There was no more of pressure relief, and the men just take it out on the government. They take it out on the buildings. Regardless of, this is why they say the revolution will not be televised. That's why you don't see anything of what's going on in France. You don't see the cities burning and the buildings burning and the men attacking the police. You don't see any of that. And it's because, as they say, the revolution will not be televised. And this is what is going on in France. It's kept very quiet because they don't want you men getting any ideas in America. But I've always advocated for the same thing. If you cannot logically and reasonably come to a conclusion that you will stop utilizing the weaponization of the state against me, well, then the only thing left is force. And of course, in America has, all these guns, but the men are overwhelmingly afraid to use them. Shit, you won't even secure your own border when your own government won't do it. And that's overwhelmingly related to white men not having enough kids. But if you really, for all of you 1776 men, if you really cared about what was going on, you'd be down at the border. But you're not, right? You just talk a good game. And it's always the same. The beatings will continue until morale improves. And for many people going red pill or mgtow or monk, all of this is just a cope. It's just all different variations of cope, right down to the whole trans thing. It's just variations of coping with the system is so bad. What can I do to enjoy my life? Well, you need to go red pill. That's what you need to do. You need to understand women. You need to understand hypergamy. You know what it is? It's because your money ain't up. Money's not up. That's what the problem is. You know what it is? You're not in the gym enough. You need to hit the gym regularly. Now, you know what it is? You need to cut your dick off. That's what it is. And appeal to these other men who are incels, right? They're involuntary celibate, and then go be a trans woman for them, right? Go offer your butthole to some of these men and pretend it's a pussy. And this is a state of men. This is a state of men in America, and it's overwhelmingly the beatings will continue until morale improves, until the point where men just reach fuck it. This is what you see in many black communities, where people get upset that many young black men are committing acts of violence and robbing places, and the government aren't doing anything. Why? Again, pressure relief. You got to have that pressure relief valve that people will blow off steam. People will go out, oh, we're going to protest. We're going to protest. We're going to go, burn down our own neighborhoods. And it's all so that these young men, and it's overwhelmingly, who was it that was out there during those protests? It was overwhelmingly men and young men. And overwhelmingly, it's so that they don't direct their attention towards the government. Go ahead, go into those white neighborhoods, right? That's why you see Joe Biden advocating for white supremacy. It's all to deflect so that you don't come after us in terms of, i.e., the government, politicians, banks, etc. Those people who are in positions of real authority, right? You got a white man in a black college, in a historically black college, talking about that the biggest problem that America has is white supremacy. And it's so weird because you don't hear this sort of stuff like as a Latino. This isn't something that we talk about. This isn't something that occurs in our lives. We really don't talk about white supremacy. We have more problems with the black neighborhoods than we do with the white neighborhoods. That's why you look in the jails, when the Latinos end up in jail, they side with white people. And this is something that is talked about very often in places like in LA. How come the Vatos are always going with the white people? And it's because they recognize where their source of violence will really come from. Anyway, but this is the state of men in America, and it will continue, right? This is why you have shit. You even have Justin Trudeau talking about how his son is getting red-pilled, and he's talking, because it's all on social media. And this is why you see a lot of, when you look back in the day, you didn't really see a lot of wealthy people who were like red pill. It was like the people who were so-called disgruntled, somebody hurt you, etc. Now, there's so many men that are hating the system that you get the Andrew Tates. You get the Andrew Tates of the system. And it will only continue to get worse until the pressure reliefs don't work anymore. And then men just reach fuck it. And then you get to the point where you have civil war. And this is always the reality of how men are. When men understand that if we don't utilize logic and reason, then the only thing that remains is force. And of course, in the good times, you have weak men that are too afraid to utilize force. But that's why you see things becoming harder for men. They become more censorship, more control, right? We're not gonna employ white men. We're not gonna. If you're not white, if you're not a woman, if you're not a minority, we're not going to employ you. If you're a white man, you're privileged. This is what you see. This is what you see going on. And eventually, it all leads to revolution. It's just a matter of when. What's going on in Europe right now, where the men are getting upset, where you have now all these Muslim immigrants that are coming into the country, and those are going to be the men that are going to kick the revolution off, because they're going to see all the fuckery that's been going on, and they're going to be like, we ain't tolerating this shit. That's why they don't fuck with the Muslims. Why? Because those men will start beheading people, right? This is why they're so afraid. Why? Because they're masculine men. That's why they're so afraid of them. Because those men are willing to do what you're not willing to do. And that's why you're getting replaced. You're getting replaced by men who are just not willing to put up with all this bullshit. They're not willing to put up with your son needs to have his penis cut off. Your son needs to read books that talk about how to give oral to a man, or the whole trans thing, right? Those men don't put up with it. Those men will behead individuals. They'll lobbing people's head off in the street. But this is the inevitable outcome, because it is how men deal with each other. But in the good times create weak men, and those weak men bring about hard times. And so Europe is going about hard times. Their weak men are being culled, right? Or they're just not having children. And that's what happens. And what happens? The rise of strong men. It doesn't mean it's going to be you. It doesn't mean it's going to be your people. But there will be strong men that will come and replace you. And all those women that are out there with their, protesting and the future is female and we don't need no man. When the strong man comes in, as they say, when the barbarian is at the gate, they're going to lie down on their backs and they're going to service those men. And the weak men will be culled. And this is what you see going on in Europe. This is what America is afraid of. I mean, sure, you got all these Americans complaining about the border. You're going to get replaced. 51% of all births in America are Latino. And Latinos will change the way the America works. And the weak men will not have children. They will not procreate. And you'll have a higher birth rate of Latin people. And Americans, the old Americans, will be replaced by the new Americans. And it is what it is. This is why Justin Trudeau was talking about his son. He was talking about how his son was being indoctrinated by right-wing, toxic masculinity. And it's because his own son recognizes the stage of what it is for him to be a man. What is it going to be like? He's a young kid. What's it going to be like when he gets older? And he's starting to adopt more red pill or more masculine way of thinking. And of course, his father doesn't like that because his father's a weak man. It is what it is. It is the state of men. It's not something that can be changed. You can try. Some men might fall victim to the propaganda. There'll be the weak men, right? Overwhelmingly, who you see, being advocated this towards is men. Why? Because they're afraid of men revolting. They're afraid of, these weak men that are in positions of power. They're afraid of a revolution. And so what do? They keep propagandizing the men, right? You can become a woman and you're just as good, right? For these men, you can't find a woman. Well, just become one and then go give yourself over and you're a real woman. This is how bad the state of things are for men. And it always ends in revolution. Always. Anyway, thanks for watching and I'll catch you next time.